Way keep their overhead at a minimum. And that's what donors want to see. They want to see that their money is going to these organizations, not to United Way. Not, I mean, you guys are needed very much so, but leveraging more volunteers in this process really enables to maximize the money that goes to our partner agencies. So I do hope that you will consider joining us as volunteers. Your experience will be rewarding. You will. And not only will you learn a little bit more about your community, you'll also meet some great volunteers as well. So that's all I have. I'm going to turn it back to you, Tiffany.
Thank you so much, Kay. We really appreciate your gift of time and energy into this process and into United Way. We just deeply appreciate you and all of you. So I'm excited to start kind of diving in a little bit and sharing more about what the CIRT process means. We got to hear from Kay from a volunteer perspective. And now I would like to share with you a short video from one of our board members. This is from a CEO panel that happened recently, and just hearing from their perspective as well, why the CIRT process is so impactful with our community.
One of the ways that we tie in impact through various communication vehicles, videos or marketing materials, to identify for every single donor the impact of that dollar that they give to the community. So there's a tremendous amount of materials, and we also rely upon a CIRT process, which is unique to the United Way. So United Way doesn't fund necessarily an agency where they just get a certain dollar amount. We fund programs. And so there's a group of volunteers, hundreds of volunteers, that go to every agency and review and see the outcomes. Because we're a very generous community in Omaha, and there are a lot of foundations. And one of the big questions from even some of the big donors is it being properly utilized? I mean, there's so many people. Are they all chasing the same dollar? You're all chasing, or there's so many people doing the same thing. How do we know it's really making a difference so that person is just giving, whatever dollar amount, knows it's an impact to the community? So this CIRT process looks at that and identifies the programs that have outcomes. So people have to demonstrate that we're actually doing what we say we're going to do.
Thanks, Bob. So he reiterated, some of the points that Kay made, and truly, when it comes to CIRT, it's for our community, by our community, and uplifting the community voice is really what matters. We want to invest these dollars where the community members see that it's most needed. It's not, just a couple of people in an office somewhere that are making all of the decisions. It's you helping your neighbor through volunteering through this unique experience. So for those of you that are returning CIRT volunteers, things are going to look a little different this year. For those of you first timers, I'm excited that this process is going to be a little more easy and seamless than it has been in the past. I'll go over a few of the updates with you all. One of the big updates that we have really focused on this year is embedding equity into our entire process. We want to make sure that anyone who applies has has an equal shot. So we've made some changes to our application to make it a little bit easier. There are some agencies that have dedicated development teams, and there are some agencies that have 2 guys wearing 10 hats. And by shortening word counts and making more check boxes and drop downs and things like that, it allows people to really just give us the meat of the program, and allows everyone to have start on the same playing field, essentially. we have also removed some of the barriers that we've had in the past. It used to be that you had to have your 501c3 for a minimum of 3 years before you were eligible to apply for the Community Care Fund. That has been removed. So it's really open to anyone who is working to make their community better. Community voice. This year, we are seeking out more volunteers from more places. We have been doing outreach for people with lived experience with these programs, and not necessarily just all corporate partners. We want to make sure that everyone is included. And then through our partnership, we have been focusing a lot on what does partnership look like outside of just giving money. We focused on the relationship building aspects. How can we support them, whether it's through social media and marketing, is through volunteerism and supporting them by helping, get volunteers to come to their projects. Just expanding on what that partnership means and making sure we're strengthening those areas all around, and not just being a standard funder who writes a check and then never talks to you again or replies to an email. Here at the bottom, you can see a quote from a local agency that they provided anonymously during a feedback survey. They said, United Way of the Midlands has such a unique and strong reputation in the community. Being associated with UWM and being a UWM funded agency provides credibility within the community that opens doors for other funding support. And that's something that we have heard regularly, that becoming a partner with United Way and being funded through our Community Care Fund truly is just like an extra little sticker that shows that they have been through our CIRT process, that they have proven to their community that they have what it takes to make change. And it helps open up doors for other funding opportunities and new relationships. So the Community Care Fund is what we use for this CIRT process. Here in red, you'll see the X million. We don't have a specific number yet, and for what the budget will look like. We usually get that closer to the funding meetings when it's time to actually start allocating funds to the programs that have been reviewed. So I can't give you any insight into that today, but hopefully we will know more sooner rather than later. Allie had mentioned earlier that we have some different buckets. Education and financial stability are two. We also have basic needs. That basic needs umbrella includes housing programs, shelter programs, food programs, crisis intervention, and physical health, mental health, a bunch of different things truly that you need to survive. We are also fund programs in Council Bluffs. So we do accept program applications from the Omaha Council Bluffs Metro, not just Omaha City. We also make an effort to have a diverse portfolio and embed some risk and be conscious of what it looks like as a whole. I don't know. Sorry, I stumbled on my words. I had a brain bubble. But some things that are new this year, in addition to a streamlined application, is a grant management software. So those of you that have volunteered before are familiar with EC Impact. We are switching to an awesome new software called WiseHive. It is so much more user-friendly. It really will help cut the time down that it will take to read and review the applications. We have also implemented a new LOI and due diligence meeting process. This isn't something that we have done before, and we're really excited about it. LOIs are currently open right now. They close on October 31st. We anticipate this year being very competitive. And then after our team reviews every single LOI, there'll be one LOI per program. We really sit down and talk about the merits of the program and provide feedback and have more in-depth conversations with each agency about their programs to make sure that when they do apply, that they have the strongest application that they are putting that they can put forth. Something else new this year is that we have award minimums. In the past, some people have received smaller awards like $10,000, $12,000, or a little bit of seed money. This year, we want to make sure that every dollar can truly make a difference. So we have set an award minimum of $25,000 to make sure that the award can actually, do something more than, $10,000 can. And one thing that I'm really excited about is our grassroots and emerging programs. This is a new team, a new bucket that we have embedded into our community care fund. By removing that 501c3 for 3 years barrier, we're truly trying to see what is out in our community that we don't know about and bring it to our table. So we will have a special team of all new, never funded programs from our community. And we're very excited about this, and more details will come on what those look like. But I think it's really exciting. And then, like I mentioned earlier, some equitable having a standard equitable application to make sure that it is an efficient process for everyone. So I kind of talked about the umbrellas of the buckets. This here is a breakdown of what the actual teams tend to look like. Sometimes we'll have more than one team, but here in the blue is what we classify as our basic needs programs: the food, the case management, shelter, and the health programming. We have our new grassroots and emerging programs here as its one team. For example, in basic needs, there could be a lot of food programs, so there might be 2 food teams. So these are subject to change, but for the most part, this is pretty standard of what you will see when it comes to how we start funding. Here in the orange, you can see our education programming. Generally comes out in out of school time, early learning, attendance and credit recovery, mentoring, and family support. And then here at the bottom in yellow are our financial stability programs. So we need every personality type, every strength, and every group. So we do our best to put you in the team of your choice. We can't promise that, but we sure do our best. It's also exciting to learn about something new and maybe join a team that is something that you have never really learned much about. It's pretty exciting. Okay, before we get into the process and the timeline, Meg, were there any questions in the chat that I missed?
We have not received any questions yet.
Okay.
So I would say we can pause for a second to see if anybody has any questions that they want to ask. give it a second, and then we'll jump kind of into what that process and time commitment really looks like and kind of get down to the nitty-gritty.
Perfect. Not everyone at once. Okay, well, if we don't have any questions, then I will move on to what the actual process and timeline commitment looks like. And then we will stick around for questions at the end if you have questions or just need to seek clarification on anything. With any volunteer event or project, everyone wants to know how much time do I need to give to it and how much energy. The process of being a CIRT volunteer actually goes over a few months. So it's not necessarily like one day, all day. It's a couple hours here and there. A big chunk of it is on your own time within a month or so time frame. So if you commit to being a CIRT volunteer, you'll receive training virtually. So we will actually go through the specifics of what each meeting looks like, the actual review process, all of those details that we didn't share today, but it will really take you down into the nitty-gritty of it all. You will then be assigned to a priority area, so one of those buckets, one of those teams. And like I said, we try and get you into your first choice team if possible. Each team generally reviews 10 to 14 applications. We tend to get a couple hundred applications, so we don't want to put you through all of that. That's a lot of brain power. So 10 to 14 applications per team. You will attend at least two meetings to discuss the applications. I will break down the meetings on the next slide to kind of help you understand how your time will be spent. And then truly it's just your voice coming to the investment process. We want to make sure we hear every single person on the team with their thoughts and their critiques on the applications. And then ultimately it's that team's job to make sure that the donor dollars that are committed to that team are invested wisely. And I think it's, like I said at the beginning, it's a really awesome responsibility to be able to go through that process. So when you are actually going through the reading, the scoring, and the meetings, I would say it takes about 10 to 15 hours to read and score your 10 to 14 applications. It used to be more, but we are anticipating it being less this year because the applications are not as long and intense as they have been in the past. We usually recommend reading it twice, so that 10 to 15 hours includes 2 read-throughs and the actual scoring of the application. We say once for context or content, and second for review. I always recommend an introduction meeting, and generally that takes about a half hour. I have just found in my personal experience that if a team is able to meet even for just a few minutes before their actual initial meeting, it helps kind of break through the ice and allows them to really just kind of dive in and communicate a little bit better when they get to that first review meeting. Which is called the recalibration meeting. We generally block off about 2 hours for that, and then 2 hours for the funding meeting where the actual funds are invested into the program. So it's about a 15 to 20 total hours over the course of a few months. I do want to make sure that everyone knows that the virtual meetings do occur during the workday. That 2-hour recalibration meeting and that 2-hour funding meeting generally take place either in the morning or the afternoon of a weekday. Usually teams will kind of work it out together about what works best for them and schedule that up with one of our UWM team members who will be there to help facilitate. So there's a little bit of flexibility, but it's generally during that 9 to 5 hours, Monday through Friday. The meeting overviews, just to kind of touch on what we were talking about, the introductory team meeting, I explained a little bit. At the recalibration meeting, which is that first big 2-hour meeting, that's when you will see the combined review scores from UWM staff and your team. And that's really, we don't put any dollar amounts anywhere. It's truly just to talk about the merits of the program. Some people choose to, re-rank them in order of their favorites or who scored the highest. It's just truly talking about the heart of the applications and their ability to communicate their outcomes and outputs. That funding meeting is when you come back and you get that dollar amount, and then you get to budget. So at the end of that meeting, you'll have the dollars invested to the programs on your team. Some people can do that. Some teams do that very quickly. Some teams take the full 2 hours. And then the final funding meeting is for team leads only. So we have a volunteer like Kay, who has been a team lead in the past. They lead the meeting, and we just have UWM staff there for like historical context and facilitation, but it's a volunteer leading the process. And then that team lead will come, all the team leads from each team will come together to represent your team voice for the final funding package that gets sent to the board. Pardon me. All right, so I want to leave you guys with just some important dates and our contact information. This is a rough outline of what the CIRT process will look like over the next coming year. Applications open January 8th, so volunteer training will begin in mid-January. That date is still to be determined, but it will be a virtual training as well. And then in early February is where everyone will receive their team assignments. In mid-February is when reading and reviews begin, pardon me. And then March is when the reviews are due, and you schedule the meetings for that recalibration and final funding meetings. So that's there for you to kind of noodle over, see if it is something that you feel is compatible with your interests and your available time. If you do want to volunteer as a CIRT volunteer for this upcoming cycle, we do ask that you email communityinvestment@uwmidlands.org by Wednesday, November 15th, just to confirm your participation. So I will leave this slide up, and our team will stay on for a bit to be available for any additional questions or clarifications that you might have.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I was just going to say thank you. So
I'll respond to a couple questions regarding the chat. We had a few questions just about timeline and such, which I think we have up here. Please feel free to reach out to us if you want to think about it. We will be following up as well, just to make sure that we don't miss you. I've seen a couple questions just about like, can we confirm participation now? Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know you're interested and want to do it, feel free to put it in the chat. We will take all of this down and be contacting you. And I just really want to say, like, to Tiffany's point, like, we could not do this without you as volunteers. This is crucial for the community, for the nonprofits that are doing this work. And we need your vast experience and interests. And I'm so excited. I'm seeing so many ins right now. This is great. So truly, like, as volunteers, as donors, we could not do this without you. I have seen one question that I do want to address, which is just about like conflict of interest. If maybe you've previously worked for an organization or served on a board of an organization that has submitted for funding, or you've been part of programming before, when you receive your information to create your volunteer profile, there is a section for conflict of interest. So we will take that information down and ensure that you're not a part of that specific team. So yeah, we will make sure that everybody is kind of A, in their areas of interest, but B, that we are addressing any conflicts as well. As I said, we will have this recorded, or we do have this recorded, so we will get this hopefully out within the next week. So that's really everything that I have. We'll, like Tiffany said, hang out for a few more minutes, but truly thank all of you for your participation and your interest.
Meg, this is Kay Doyle. There is a question in the chat about, do the working teams schedule their own review and funding meetings, or is that assigned by United Way?
Yep, good question. Thank you, Kay. So we send out kind of a survey for what works best for your team. So we'll go with what the majority of what works for your team. We'll kind of predetermine some dates and see if the morning time or afternoon time works best. If it doesn't work for your schedule, but you complete the reviews, we will take your reviews and your notes down and ask for your feedback if we also know that life comes up and things happen and you might not be able to make a meeting. So we'll be sure to get your input if it doesn't work out.
Schedule those meetings pretty well in advance as well. So it's not like it's going to happen next week and you're trying to scramble. You usually have 3 to 5 weeks notice of when a meeting is.
I'll just add too, for those of still hanging on, Tiffany mentioned our new software. Those of you that have participated in this experience before, like, kick EC Impact to the curb. We are so excited about Wise Hive. And we've heard some great feedback from our agencies also that have already submitted their letters of intent. I will say throughout this whole process, we haven't had like one question about issues with login or creating profiles. We've gotten feedback just about the ease of the software system. And that's really due to your feedback as volunteers. We took it into consideration, what you guys told us about the system and kind of how clunky it was, what agencies said. So yeah, we're excited to have you all kind of jump in there and see the ease. But yeah, thank you all again. And again, we'll hang out if anybody has anything.
Meg, I put a question in the chat. Do you recommend returning volunteers go through training since we are using a new system?
I would say yes. We'll walk through the new Wise Hive system, get you comfortable with it. Again, it'll be something that we can record so we can send out to people that can't make it. But yeah, I think it'll be helpful so that way you feel confident going into your application reviews.
Yeah, great question, Kate. The other thing too on that is some of the questions. We also used your feedback from previous volunteers on how questions were worded, and so there's some changes to some of those questions as well. So we just want folks to kind of understand some of those changes in the application. But by and large, the scoring process is generally the same. It's still a scale, et cetera. But just some of the nuances with the system will be important, as well as some of the changes in the actual application that Tiffany referenced.
And if you guys don't have any questions, I hope you have an excellent afternoon, and feel free to email us if anything pops up later. We are happy to answer any questions you might have that come up later. So have a great day.
Sarah, not sure if you're hanging on. Or if maybe you had to step away too. I know I do that sometimes. Thank you, Kay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I hope it was good information. I think it was. We seem to have a lot of interest.
It's just really fun to see all the yeses in the chat.
I'm going through and liking all of them.
Yeah, that's going to make follow-up really, really helpful if folks in the next meeting too put their yeses in. That'll just mean less follow-up of folks that we have to try to track down. But
do we want to stop recording? Or
yes.
Sarah, are you still with us?